Okay, a question that I get from a ton of you is, where do I start if I want to start a podcast? And I love when answers are simpler than we expect them to be. So I want to tell you about a resource that's changed the game for us with our podcast, and that is Spotify for Podcasters. If you want to start your own podcast, Spotify has a platform that makes it so easy. You upload your episodes and then Spotify actually distributes it everywhere onto all platforms and even helps you earn money so that it can be profitable for you and a blessing for you, your family, your people. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit your podcast literally from your phone or your computer. So if you don't have a fancy setup, it's okay. You can immediately get started today. Then again, you distribute it to Spotify and everywhere else that podcasts are available. You can also do video podcasts, which sounds like a dream to me. And when you want to take conversations with your people to the next level, you can do Q&A and polls, all sorts of fun things. You can earn money with ads and podcast subscriptions, or you can just get started using what you've got for the good of others and the glory of God. Check out Spotify for Podcasters. I use it. I love it. I highly recommend it. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app. I have it on my phone, highly suggest, or go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started today.
Hey friends, you're listening to the Go and Tell Gals podcast, and I'm your host, Jess Connolly. On each episode, I'll have a guest who will give us a peek into what it looks like for her to run on mission in her everyday life. Our prayer is that it leaves you encouraged and spurred on to go and tell the good news right where you're at. Hey friends, today's episode is with Lisa Leonard. Listen, I've been following Lisa Leonard online for years. I love her jewelry. I've been a big fan of her stuff. But today's episode is so raw and so honest. And it is not where I expected we'd head, but I'm so thankful to have gotten to hear a little more of her story and to hear a little more of her heart. Her new book is called Brave Love, and she is showing up very brave and very loving. And I think we are all going to be really blessed by this episode. Enjoy. All right, friends, I am here today with the incredible and incomparable Lisa Leonard. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Okay, I don't know if you know this. I'm a longtime Lisa Leonard fan and big supporter of your jewelry. I have loved your stuff for years, and I'm so grateful for just the way you share your story, and the way you share your business story has been so encouraging to me, and I know so many women, but also your family story.
Thanks, Jess.
Absolutely. So I know a lot about what you do and what you've been doing the last few years because I've been watching, but for any of our listeners who may not know, just tell us a little bit what life is like and how you got here.
Sure. So my husband and I own a few online businesses, and the first online business that we started is called Lisa Leonard Designs, which is handmade jewelry with meaning behind it, and it's hand stamped like with your kids' names and that kind of thing. Our oldest son, David, is 16 years old now, and he was born with a pretty serious disability. And the business kind of bloomed out of wanting to bring beauty into the world and wanting to have a meaning, like something meaningful that I carried with me. Mm-hmm. And then our second son, Matthias, is 14, and he's a typical kiddo. He is very creative and kind of an old soul. The business has just grown tremendously over the years, and it keeps us busy, and life is crazy and good.
I love it. Okay. And I also am particularly interested in your husband came to work with you a few years ago, right? At Lisa Leonard. How's that been?
Yeah. So he was a pastor for 10 years and really loved it and was so supportive of my little hobby that just started at our kitchen table. I was just stringing beads. And when I started doing hand stamped jewelry, it just kind of exploded. We hadn't anticipated that. I hadn't gone into making jewelry with any kind of aspirations for that type of thing. As it started growing so quickly, I love the creativity and I really love like marketing and connecting. But the business side was way intimidating for me. And as it started growing, I was like, I don't know what to do. Like employees and all the big marketing and connecting with consultants. I mean, it's a whole other world. And he kind of jumped in and was so good at it. So he ended up leaving his job and becoming our CEO and running the business. And he's just incredible at it. Also, the two of us working together, it's great. Like our strengths are so well matched. And it's also really challenging. Yeah, like it's real. I mean, at one point in our lives, we're like, we have kids together, we work together, we do Bible study together, like everything we did overlapped. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't breathe. And really, like a couple years ago, we had a marriage crisis and separated for a bit. And we can talk more about that if you'd like, but it kind of all led up to a breaking point, especially for me. He's more extroverted and kind of like puts everything out there. And I'm a pleaser and I want to make people happy, and everybody wasn't happy. So I was like falling apart, and our marriage crisis really led to some beautiful things blooming out of that.
I would love to go back to that, but tell us a little bit about this shift from small business into the book world and the book you have coming out in January.
Yeah. So, wow, it is so surreal. I just found out yesterday that Barnes & Noble is going to have it on their kind of feature table as you walk into the store.
Wow.
And it's so surreal. I'm like trying to just soak it in because it is so crazy to me. I'm like, I am going to have a book in the world. And then, like Barnes & Noble is going to carry it. And what the heck? Just crazy. So I think, a big part of our business has been telling our story and just trying to be honest and real in a world where I think it's easy to kind of make things shiny and pretty. And David's disability keeps us really humble, because before David was born, I really was like, we can be this perfect family with our cute house and our cute kids and everything can look good. And then, we have a son who has 2 fingers on his left hand and he's nonverbal and he's diapered. And it's like, okay, like that image shattered. And with it kind of like we wear our brokenness on the outside more. And it's harder to pretend we're perfect, which is a good thing actually, but hard. So just kind of talking about that real stuff on my blog and in social media, somehow it just evolved into a book. I was contacted by an agent who's incredible, and we are working with Zondervan, who's just a fantastic publisher. And it's really kind of amazing the way it's come together.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so maybe this will touch a little bit on the season you just referenced, but as all of this is growing, your business is growing, just huge, book stuff is coming up. What are some of the biggest challenges you were facing just stepping into this work that obviously God had called you to?
Yeah, I really believed like deep in my soul that to be loved, I needed to make other people happy. And like if my husband was happy and my kids were happy, then I was a good mom and a good wife and they would love me. And so life is real and people have their own emotions that I'm finding out I'm not in control of. And, I tried so hard for so long. And I think that David's disability also played into this because he just needs so much care. And so it's like I'm trying to give and serve and be selfless and be needless and wantless. And I just found myself so empty and isolated. And when I was sad, I tried to pretend to be happy. And when Steve and I had conflict, I tried to smooth over it and not say what I really thought. And it really came to this point of so much desperation for myself, like for me. I mean, I just was completely empty and I just wanted to be alone. Like I was like, I am so miserable. I would rather be alone than be in this marriage. One of the hardest things that I have ever done was sitting in a counseling session with Steve and telling him that I wanted to separate. And just his reaction was so heart-wrenching. And as a pleaser, I think I was like, this is so counterintuitive because I just want him to be happy. And here I am breaking his heart. Yeah. But I had nothing left to give. I was just so totally broken. Yeah. And the beautiful thing there is I was being honest, and as painful as it was, it actually enabled us to get to a place where we were being honest, especially me. I think he's more open to conflict. I wasn't. So he would like come after me and try to pursue me, and I would put up walls. Mm-hmm. I just wanted him to pretend to be happy. Mm-hmm. And it didn't work. It didn't work in the short term, and it certainly didn't work in the long run. So yeah, it's fascinating. Like, we were apart for a few weeks, and I did a lot of soul searching during that time. We both did like a week-long intensive retreat at a place called the Meadows, where we kind of tried to work through false beliefs and gain insights into what I was doing and what he was doing that were contributing to our marriage the way that it was. And so as we talk about mission, the most important thing that I'm working on right now is being honest. Wow. And just showing up and saying, here's what I really think, and here's what I really feel. Even if it hurts you, I'm going to tell you the truth.
Man, I think you're saying such important things right now. I'm just like silently praying that as many women as possible will listen to this, because this idea right now in 2018, going into 2019, of bravery and courage is so different than what you're saying. And I think there's this sense that we should just all go be fearless boss babes and like get it done and tackle our fears. And what I'm hearing you say is like, there is some extreme bravery and courage that comes with saying, I don't want a false happy life.
Yeah.
I want a real honest life.
Yeah.
And no one is really selling that message, And so I'm just so thankful. I think we really need bold women to step up and say, like, I don't want fake happy.
Right.
I will not settle for fake happy anymore. I heard you say in the midst of that you tried to be wantless and needless. And I'm going to be totally honest. If someone asked me this question, the question I'm about to ask you, I'm not sure how I would answer. So feel free to take a minute if you don't have an immediate answer. But what does it look like to show up in your day comfortable with your own wants and needs?
Yeah, that is something that I've been thinking a lot about. It's so fascinating, Jess, because so much of what I believed about what God wanted from me has been turned upside down. And I think sometimes God's world seems so counterintuitive or upside down to what we're experiencing. So I thought to be brave meant you buck up and you smile and you engage and you're strong, And then I'm finding like, whoa, in my most broken, like when I told Steve I wanted to separate, God met me in that place and said, now we're seeing the real you, Lisa. Now you're finally being honest. And he's like, this is what I want, which just felt so counterintuitive because I'm like, but I know you love marriage. And he's, God does love marriage, but he also loves his people and he wants us to be honest. So it was crazy to realize like, oh my gosh, like I felt like I was turning my back on my family and my friends and my faith when I told Steve I wanted to separate. But it was actually like this broken, total like vulnerability. And God met me in that place. There was no pride. It was just me broken. And God is like, I love you, Lisa, right now, even in this brokenness. So going back to your question of what does it look like to have needs and wants just in everyday life? I mean, it's crazy because it's like all these little mundane things. I was raised to believe that women, they keep a tidy house, they cook dinner, they are positive and upbeat and beautiful, and like being productive is value. Yesterday, I woke up and I was fighting a migraine. And when that happens, I just have to like stop everything, take medicine and lay down, which is so counterintuitive to what I want to do. Like I'm like, I've got a list. I want to work my list. I feel like I'm letting my family down and my business down. But I'm learning like, no, I have to listen to my body and rest. I am not defined by my to-do list. I can take a day and do nothing, and I'm still loved and I'm still valuable. And actually, it is better for my soul and helps me to have more to give, not less. I feel like this shouldn't be so complicated for me, but like just saying what I actually think. Yeah. It can be so terrifying for me. Our linen closet is a disaster. And I'm not like the most organized person. Steve opened it up the other day and said like, oh my gosh, this is just a wreck. And before I would have felt like I'm a failure. this is my job. I'm supposed to do this. And I didn't do it. And he may not love me anymore. Had this whole spiral of thoughts about how I'm a failure.
Yeah.
But I've been really trying to show up. And so I said, you know what? It is a wreck. And I don't have time to deal with it. And just not apologizing, not trying to make him okay. And he wasn't even upset. He's not blaming me. A lot of it is just my own process. But really just saying yeah, it is a mess. I can't deal with it today. And not making it about my value or my person. And so little things like that just showing up, being a whole person, not defining my value based on a situation, but letting people feel what they feel and saying what I really think.
I tell people all the time, I think we miss out on some of the best parts of God when we act like we don't need him. So God just isn't that much fun if you're your own God,
Yes.
If you're I'm happy, I'm great, I'm everything I need, I'm this, I'm good. If we always just say I'm good, things are good, then we just don't experience a lot of the relief and the joy and the fun and the comfort that God brings. And I think the same is true for our humans, right? We don't really get to experience the comfort and the encouragement if we don't say, yeah, it is a mess. I actually feel pretty bad about it. I could really use your help.
Yeah.
It's oh, that's when marriage gets good. When your husband's oh, I'm sorry. How can I help you organize the closet better? And you're oh, this is why it's nice to do this together, because I don't have to do it all the time. I love that. I just love the idea of brave love. I'm so excited for this book, and I'm so excited for more women to just be able to show up and feel empowered and encouraged to show up and be honest about what they need and about what they're walking through.
Yes.
What's helped you? Have there been small or big tips or tricks or tools that you've found as you're a woman who carries a lot, who balances a lot, but who's also just trying to show up honest and with her own needs? Have there been things that have helped you do what you do better?
Yeah, for sure. I've been in counseling for a few years, which is, I just highly recommend it. There are so many things that I couldn't identify in myself. And Steve and I have been in marriage counseling, which has been huge. I just think everyone could benefit from just being honest and working through stuff and having that insight from a counselor. I read the book Self-Compassion by Kristen Neff. Neff, and it really changed my life. She talks about how we speak to ourselves and how we try to control other people by the way that we create our environment and the way that we speak to ourselves. And it just kind of blew my mind. I was oh my gosh, the way that I speak to myself, I would never speak to someone else that way. Just how hard I was on myself. And then really seeing this, I try to control my family, my friends, by making them okay, by trying to make them happy. And it's actually not love. It's this other ugly thing of trying to get love, And I thought I really believed I was loving. But as everything fell apart, I'm oh my gosh, I have not wanted them to feel what they felt. I wanted them to feel what I wanted them to feel.
Yeah.
So I would say counseling, sometimes the best instigator of change is that desperate place, where I was so unhappy. I was I'm working so hard and it's not working. So what work do I need to do to actually thrive? And, just being in that broken place and just grieving and journaling and walking and talking with God. And the few weeks that Steve and I were apart were so life-changing because I was I have got to make change. I actually tried to make a really honest list of what I needed to change in my life. And there was funny things on the list. I don't want to cook. It's so stressful and I feel so much pressure around it. And I'm going to drop out of my gym because I just want more alone time. I don't want to see other people or be around other people. Friendships, I felt I needed space from, and just all kinds of things. And it was messy coming back together. I'm kind of going through my list with Steve, and he's what do you mean you're not going to cook? I'm well, I don't want to cook. And he's well, what are we going to eat? I'm yeah, I don't know. We're going to have to figure that out because I've got to get some space in this area of my life. And he was super flexible and rose to the challenge. And
I love that. I want to pause, and I want you to even encourage women right here too, because a few different things you said. Number one, for sure, counseling is just such an incredible tool. And I find that a lot of times when I talk to women about this, or when they say you know, what's helping you. And if I'll say counseling, you know, they'll say like, oh, I can't, I don't have the money, I don't have the time. And so like, let's pause there and speak a little bit to like, you're a special needs mom. You have a son with special needs. You also have another son who needs your love, your attention, your devotion. You're running a business, you're handling all these things. I would love to just hear you encourage women. And I'm going to encourage women too, like whether it's financial or time or whatever it is you think, when that defeat comes on and says like, I just can't possibly make this happen, I would say like, get creative, because there are lots of places that offer free or reduced counseling. There are great churches, you know, and there are friends you could swap with for help with your kids. But I'd love to hear, like, did you have to push through any of that? Any kind of defeat of like, I don't have time for this, or this isn't going to work in my schedule?
Yeah. I had to push through a lot of I could never, and counseling wasn't one of them for me. I have a degree in psychology, and I've been a believer in counseling for a long, long time. Yeah. But I would say I entered into counseling to try to figure out how to deal with Steve and didn't really think I needed to change. Yeah. So I did have pride going in, but I kept so busy in my life so that I wouldn't have to have that quiet time to be alone with my thoughts. I was so terrified to really just have quiet. And I know I'm not the only woman that feels that. And I think one thing I would encourage women to do is create like 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be a quiet time in quotes. It doesn't have to be, you know, Bible reading or praying even. Set the timer for 10 minutes and I would just sit on the couch with just me and my thoughts. And I truly believe that it is one of the most radical things that we can do if we want change. Yeah. And it's so funny, Jess, because in those 10 minutes, nothing would happen. I would sit there, I'd be bored and fidgety, and then the timer would buzz, and I'm like, thank goodness, move on. And the next day I would do it again. And I actually started to crave it. I was like, this is weird. But outside of those times, it was crazy. Like, I really would warn women, like, if you don't want massive change, don't make time for quiet. Because if you start making time for quiet, things are going to start unfolding, and it's big. Like, it's amazing. It's going to lead to really big things.
I think you're making such a good point right now. If you don't have time for a full-blown counseling session, if you can't make that happen, do you have time for 10 minutes to just sit in the quiet, to quiet your heart, to see what you find, to see what comes to the surface? I think that's such a powerful tool.
Exactly. And if you're looking at counseling, like, there's no way, I can't afford it, I don't have time, it's never going to happen. Just to make time, 10 minutes of quiet every day. And there may be like ideas that come to you or paths you hadn't considered, you know. I mean, there's so many ways toward growth and wholeness. And I think it's going to look different for everyone. Yeah. But if we don't make space to have the brain power to think about it, it's just way too big and intimidating and scary, and just even going there mentally is terrifying.
Yeah. I wanted to go back even to what you said about like, I don't want to cook anymore. I think we live under all these arbitrary rules about what we have to be like in America. And I think sometimes we just lose sight of the truth that we've been given dominion over our own lives. Like, we're in charge. I tell my husband all the time, like, we're in charge here. So if we don't have time for our kids to go to basketball practice anymore, if that's no longer life-giving for them, nothing in the like America rule book says they have to go to basketball. If they don't like it, it's not life-giving, it doesn't fit in our schedule, we're okay. We can pull them out. Like, that's all right. It's okay. We're big kids. If you say, you know what, it is no longer life-giving for me to cook, I think we could immediately be like, well, then what's going to happen? Or who's going to make the food? And I mean, maybe you have the means to use a meal delivery service, or maybe you say like, we're going to do this or we're going to do that. But even if you just decided, you know what, all we have money for is beans and rice, and I'm going to make a huge pot of beans and rice at the beginning of the week, and that's going to cost about $5. And then every night, everybody gets to pick whatever kind of sauce they want to put on their beans and their rice. Like, this is a $20 dinner solution that will feed 8 people if you want it to. And we don't live under the rules of any kind of world that says you have to have something different for dinner every night. People all over the world have the same thing for dinner every night. And so even small things like that, like maybe you don't want to eat beans and rice every night for dinner, but I just think we have to remember we're in charge. And if something's not working, and if something is keeping us from thriving or abundance or health, we can change it. We don't have to keep going just because that's the way it's been done. And so
that's so good, Jess.
I love you just saying, like, I don't want to cook anymore. I don't want to. So let's figure that out.
I think that, yeah, there's so much pressure from all these have to. Like, I have to do this, I have to do that. I spoke at a MOPS group, and one of the women came up to me after and said, my husband said when he comes home from work, he wants all the toys put away. And I just feel like, I don't know if I can do it, you know? And it's like, I'm a stay-at-home mom. Like, it's my job to keep the house clean. And she had like 3 small children. You know, I said, I totally respect that he wants to come home and the toys are put away, but also you're a real person, like with a lot going on, and 3 little kids, and that may not be realistic. And I think there's so much pressure. Like, I should make my husband happy. I'm the stay-at-home mom. Like, I should keep the house clean. I should. But you know what? She can say like, yeah, I get that. And it makes so much sense to me that you want to come home to a tidy house, but I'm not able to give that to you. Right. So we're going to have to talk about other solutions.
Right.
I really had this light bulb moment during our whole marriage crisis. Like, oh my gosh, I am a person. Like, we have a marriage with 2 people, and I am one of the 2 people. And it was just like, whoa, like, he has opinions and I also have opinions. We both have wants and needs, and we need to be honest about it. And it's not easy and neat and tidy. Sometimes it's messy and dark and ugly. But we can be in this marriage and be honest, and we can fight and we can figure it out. And it's not always going to be what he wants, and it's not always going to be what I want. Like, we're going to have to work together and figure it out.
I love that. I always tell my kids, I often will just say to them, like, I am a human. Just remember, like, I'm a human too. So when you accidentally step on my foot, like trying to get to the milk, or when you don't pick up your toy, like right in front of me, just assuming I'll pick it up, like, just remember, I'm a human too. You have to consider me like a human. I'm a mom, and I love serving you, and I love being a part of the leadership of our family. But I'm a real life human that has feelings and that, like, gets cold, so don't take my blankets. And I think that's such an important part of being a leader, which is what often being a mom and a wife and all of these roles that you are is just knowing what your needs are and what your wants are. So, man, I love that. Thanks for sharing. So those are just brave, honest things to say that I am so excited to know that you're carrying on this conversation in your book, in your work. It's just so good. I'm very grateful.
Thanks, Jess.
Friends, I want to take a minute in the middle of this podcast to make sure that you know about Go Teams. Go Teams are just one arm of what we do here at Go and Tell Gals, but it is our intentional coaching groups where we encourage women in their individual callings. If you don't know what we're talking about, here's the quick story. Go Teams are groups of 15 women who receive online coaching in their calling while entering into intentional community to spur one another on. You might not know this, but I've been coaching women for years and years in small business and in ministry and also in all things publishing. And genuinely, my heart is to see as many women as possible step into the gifts God has given them to use what they've got for His glory and the good of others. But we realized a few months ago that there was a flaw in my coaching and that women needed other women to spur them on and keep them excited about what God had asked them to do. They needed other women to walk with after the coaching was over. So we restructured everything and introduced Go Teams. And now 3 times a year, we take 90 women through this online coaching process in their individual callings. And then we also resource them with one another with groups that they can keep going as long as they like. If you want to hear more about Go Teams, we are launching our next set of teams in January 2019, and spots open this week. Make sure you're following the Go and Tell Gals Instagram, or that you've subscribed to our newsletter so you can get more information. We would love to see the seeds that God has planted in you come to the surface. We would love to encourage you in the gifts He's given you, and we would love to give you everything we've got to spur you on and keep you encouraged. Okay, we've got a few fun Spitfire questions to end up. And one I didn't prepare you for is, I'm curious, even after this little bit of our conversation, do you care about the Enneagram, and do you know your Enneagram number if you do?
Oh my gosh, I have not taken the Enneagram. It's crazy. I need to do it.
I'm really interested in light of some things I heard you say. I have some guesses about what you could be. Yeah, you should take it. If you're into it, I always ask, like, do you care? Because a lot of people don't care, and that's fine too.
No, I want to take it. I think it's fascinating.
Okay, well, hit me back and tell me when you know what your number is, because I have some thoughts.
Okay, I will.
And is there a book you're currently reading? Is there something you've been reading that's been life-giving?
There's 2 books I just started reading. One is Michelle Obama's memoir.
Yes.
I love memoirs. I'm like, tell me your story. Just tell me who you are, where you come from, why you are who you are. It's fascinating. And I love reading all different kinds of memoirs. It's just, to me, so fascinating to hear someone's story.
Yeah.
And it's so good. I highly recommend it.
Michelle's book is my Christmas break book this year. I have it. Yay. I am so excited. I cannot wait to dig in.
It's interesting because her story is so different than mine. She was so empowered as a child and as a young mom and stuff. I'm like, wow, it's so fascinating to read that perspective. And some of it's personality and some of it's, her upbringing and stuff. But it's just so good. Yeah, I love Brené Brown. I really think she will be one of the most influential women of our generation.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, what's your coffee order?
I love a tall Americano, easy on the water.
Okay.
And lots of cream.
Okay. All right. Good to know. I'm an Americano fan too. And easy on the water is such a smart way to order that. I love that.
I want coffee strong. I don't necessarily need espresso shots. I want some water, but I don't want it watered down too much.
Okay. I like that because the amount of water in an Americano really makes or breaks it for sure.
It really does. It really does.
Okay, do you have a secret talent? I mean, you have a lot of very public talents, but do you have any secret ones? Quirky, strange, normal, anything?
Let's see. Oh my goodness. I can touch my tongue to my nose.
That's really impressive.
And I can also do a taco tongue.
Okay.
Where it's just folded.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can do this anymore, but I used to be able to touch every place on my back. I could reach every spot. That's so nerdy.
Crazy. I love it.
Dorky.
I love it. You are full of secret talents. That's a lot.
I guess.
I love it. So good. Okay, and do you have a favorite lipstick, or are you a lipstick girl at all?
I'm really into lip gloss, and often I just use Aquaphor. I have an Aquaphor in my purse and one in the car and one by my bedstand, and I'm just I need to have constant access.
I love it. That's so great. So fun. Aquaphor, is it kind of shiny, or is it just moisturizing?
It's shiny. It's kind of like Vaseline or something.
Okay. So good. I love it. You learn something new every day. Lisa, thank you so much. Thanks for bringing this brave, strong, powerful message. We are just massively encouraged, and we're following as you follow in God's footsteps in your life.
Jess, thank you so much for having me and just for going to those, harder places. I love talking about this stuff.
So good. Thank you, friend.
All right. Talk to you soon.